All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for making it to our radiology, deep radiology presentation this morning. You can tell I'm not an expert in the field, as these two most definitely are. This is Dr. Rob Lufkin and Dr. Kim Wing, and they will be here presenting for you guys today. So please give it up and stay tuned.
Okay, so I'm Kim Wing, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Deep Radiology. I'm just going to kick it off for us here. So good early morning. Thank you very much for being here. It's a true honor to really be speaking with you about this really incredible transformation of medical imaging and healthcare. So let me just kind of start with a few minutes of what I've seen in the last few weeks, literally, and the journey that we have traveled. And then I'll let Rob take over and speak a little bit more about the project itself. So let me share with you, literally in the last 3 weeks, I slept in my own bed one night. And, and I've been invited to speak at multiple public and private meetings. I can share with you some of those. The Miami North American Bitcoin Conference. Then from there, I went to London Blockchain Conference. From there, it was Singapore Bitcoin Economic Forum. And then from there, went to Abu Dhabi, and that was the Milken Institute meeting, the MENA meeting, the first time ever that the Milken Institute actually was able to really do a conference in the Middle East. Then it was the Dubai World Government Forum with all the big wigs there. And from there to Saudi, speaking with the Saudi government and their PIF programs and the 2030 program. And then from there to ED10 in San Francisco. I barely made it here. And I missed you guys yesterday. So any of you were there yesterday, thank you so much for coming back and listening to more. And I just want to share that, so much that I love to think that they love me so much and wanting to speak, but that's not it. It is something that is really incredible. It's going to impact each and every one of us. Some of you here may be investors and you want to kind of like, hey, what's the next best coin to buy? What's the next best token to buy? I'm really not here to tell you which one, and I'm not here to tell you to even buy, our tokens or anything like that. I want to tell you that this is something that will literally impact the future of healthcare. And that's something to really remember and take home. Whether and it will impact if you are working in the field, in the healthcare field, if you're working in the software field, it's going to really impact your work. And if you don't do any of that and you're just a human, an individual, it's going to impact your own healthcare, whether now or in the future, and it will impact the healthcare of every of your loved ones, for that matter. Okay, so how does it do it? Okay, and what are we talking about here? So Deep Radiology is a digital health company, and we combined the two most transformative technologies of the 21st century, and that's artificial intelligence and blockchain technology to literally decrease the cost of healthcare, dramatically decrease the cost of healthcare. Now, each and every one of us know that healthcare is extremely complex. And to put it plainly in, everyday kind of English, it's a mess. It's a mess that, everybody will agree with me that it's a mess. The government agree with me, the public agree with me, the private people agree with me. Everybody, I don't have to really convince you all about it. And for many years, I actually personally, and let me just take another minute here to tell you a little bit about my journey. I was actually a refugee kid. And remember the end of the Vietnam War, and that helicopter took off. My family actually didn't make it out. and we got caught behind. So we lived for 5 years under communism, and finally we made it out. But my parents got caught behind still, so I was on the boat with I was 14 years old, and my sister was 11, my brother was 17. So, and then we, for half a month, we floated out there at sea, no food, no water. People died on my boat. And anyway, so I made it to a refugee camp, and the United Nations and the International Red Cross actually rescued us. And long story short, I was resettled to Australia. So I wasn't even in the US. So at 14, I started life again in a very small town. It's interesting that, in my travel, I have run into some people from exactly the same small town that I was at DE10. The guy speaking before me was from the same town. So it's amazing. So anyway, from there, I started medical school at 18, and I entered medical school directly from high school. Then at 23, I finished medical school with honors, and from there, the U.S. actually got me to the U.S. under a thing called Scientists of Extraordinary Ability. So that's kind of like the early part of my life, and then for literally a decade, I was working on pretty much MRI compatible interventional devices, or the early part of MR. And that was my career. And then I started servicing multiple hospitals across the country. The thing that you know of called telemedicine, teleradiology. I actually commercialized teleradiology, and and I was instrumentally involved in the company that ultimately went IPO. For telemedicine. And then subsequently, I started another company which even more specialized in telemedicine and providing services in radiology across the country. Now, why am I telling you all of that? It's really because for literally 15 years, I spoke with CEO, COO, CFO, chief, directors in multiple hospitals, multiple clinics across the country, many healthcare networks. And what's one common thing that they kept on asking me to do? Kim, you got to somehow reduce the cost. Can we reduce the cost of healthcare? Can we reduce the cost of medical imaging? Why is that so? Literally, healthcare cost is about somewhere between 6.5 to 8 trillion globally. The US is about half of that. So we're talking a minimum about 3.2 trillion of spending per year on healthcare. And radiology, 10% of that. Okay, so, and anybody in healthcare, you know that to decrease the cost of healthcare is like even by 5% is difficult. You cut somewhere, somebody is going to be compromised. And the whole thing is, people talk about, hey, reducing the cost, optimizing patient care. How can you do it? You got no way of doing it. And the pie is the same. And if you cut something, somebody else is going to be impacted. So for many, many years, I struggled with it. And I struggled not just by myself, everybody in healthcare and the leaders in healthcare struggle with it. So then literally 2012, fast forward now, something really dramatic, really, and it's the beginning of a huge revolution. And I'm kind of stealing a little bit from what Rob about to say here, but in any case, I can tell you 2012, that was the beginning of a revolution. That was the beginning of something that I saw, that you really have a tool now to reduce the cost of healthcare, and at the same time, you can increase you can better the quality, and that's just amazing for me, for us all. So, and what was that? That was artificial intelligence. But it's not just, artificial intelligence has been around. It's been around since before I was born, for that matter, 60s, 70s, 80s. But it was very much a case of it's really over-promising and under-delivering. And so people kind of like got disappointed with it. So by 2012, when the revolution started, and what was that? It was for the first time ever that the apart from artificial intelligence, called deep learning, machine learning. And that's why the name of the company, for that matter, Deep Radiology. So it's really deep learning radiology. But that field allows, for the first time ever, that we could have software that actually performs the recognition of very complex images better than human. Okay, and so we saw that, and I thought to myself, okay, so that's all natural imaging objects, trees and dogs and cats and all of that. Well, could we do something like that in radiology? Could we really start applying that for radiology? So we set out and we started to look into that. And that was before deep radiology was even registered. And for 3 years, we worked with that. We literally worked, under the, like in stealth mode and self-funded, for that matter. For any of those who investors and wanting to know, I can share that with you. Because for me, I feel like this is something that is so significant, so important. I don't want to go out there and just ask for people, 50,000, 100,000, just to, to explore my own concept, if you will. That's just not for me anyway. So we put a small team together and we started exploring that. And literally by 2015, 3 years later, and a lot of hard work, a lot of putting, a lot of big data together to really study that. So then we actually got the prototype that really interprets radiology scan autonomously. What does that mean? Scan going in, report goes out. Okay, and so that was the first prototype, and from there we started forming deep radiology. And why did we have to really kind of start forming that? We could continue on and didn't even form deep radiology, but we wanted to really start getting the really incredible expert in deep learning to be involved as well. So this is not something you can do it alone. This is not something you can just do it on your own. And I want to send it home to everyone here that, if you love something like this, you really want to be involved with us, with somebody, because this is going to really, this is the one chance that I've never seen before that you can actually be involved and take charge and really contribute, for that matter. So grow the community. So now let me get back and share with you a little bit, keep on sharing with you a little bit more. So what happened is that then we put together the team, and I personally looked at it and I go, you know what? I know radiology, I know healthcare, I know the field, and I'm literally, I don't want to be boasting, but I'm literally expert in what we're doing in managing of big data, large data, movement of data across, networks, VPNs, DICOM, etc., etc. So for all of those who know about this, but I do want to know where truly deep learning is, and whether it's good enough for radiology, because we got the prototype, but we got to go further. There's a lot more to go. So from that point, I started looking into it, and the top guys in deep learning, and some of you might know of them, Jan LeCun, Jeff Hinton, Banjo, Andrew Ng. Those are the people, you hear some of those names. Okay, so I approached them. And I talk with each and every one of them, for that matter, and they all involved in various different projects, and we great friends until like now, talking about all sorts of things. But Jan, basically, I show Jan our prototype, and Jan basically go, "Wow, you did this?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "I'd like to know whether deep learning is mature enough for what we wanted to do." And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Great. Okay, that's one thing." And then I said, "Okay." And then I want to know, because I've seen what's been published out there already. What I want to know is, I need more to really drive this all the way. And I said, "Hey, do you have that more in your pocket somewhere? Okay, because I need that. Otherwise, then we're still too early. Okay, and Jan said yes. Okay, so I can share with you here because that's kind of public now. So I said, okay, all right, then guess what? Do I have your blessing? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, I know you're with Facebook, right? So, Zuckerberg got you 24 hours a day. So what do we do here? And the joke that I've been telling people is Zuckerberg got him for 23 hours, 59 minutes. I got him for 1 minute. Okay, so that's really kind of like how it came together. And from there, we literally built the team. And some of you have seen a little short clip of our video. We built the team. We literally got many other people who are very talented in the field of deep learning and radiology. And we bring together the best of the best so that, what we know of today to really drive this, to really bring the best to literally revolutionize medical imaging and revolutionize healthcare. We stay extremely focused, laser focused on what we do, because what I want to see is that we set a cornerstone, even if it's a small cornerstone, that sets it for us to make this a better way for us to go forward with healthcare. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Rob, and then Rob will tell you more about the technology side. We both are very well versed in both areas. So if time runs out, we'll be more than happy to take any questions on the side for you. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Yeah, our booth's right around the corner, so we could just migrate over there when we run out of time here. But as Kim said, deep radiology, we're really excited to have the chance to work with two of the most powerful technologies of the 21st century, specifically blockchain smart contracts and deep learning artificial intelligence. They're equally revolutionary, and they allow us to dramatically lower the cost and improve the accuracy of healthcare, in particular medical imaging. And why medical imaging? There we go. Oops. Okay. Medical imaging today plays a key role in the diagnosis and treatment of virtually every significant healthcare problem. But there are issues with medical imaging. First of all, there's a growing shortage of radiologists that are necessary to interpret the images to allow the information contained in the images to be effectively used. Secondly, the interpretations the radiologists make have a small but significant error rate. We're only human, right? And that error rate, though, does contribute to human error as being the third leading cause of death in healthcare following cardiovascular disease and cancer. Finally, the high cost of these interpretations limits this life-saving technology to many of those who need it most. So as Kim mentioned, fast forward to 2012. That was the year there was a dramatic breakthrough in artificial intelligence, and for the very first time, the artificial intelligence machines were able to surpass humans. And what does that look like? This is the ImageNet challenge. These are the types of pictures that was sort of the ground truth that testing was done on. There's like 100 varieties of dogs and cats there. And what happened with this challenge was every year, starting in 2011, they had the best programmers, the human programmers in the world, would write programs on how to recognize these images. And the first two data points there are from the best human programmers from all over the world and how they would recognize that. And you can see their error rate's about 25%, so 1 out of 4 they get wrong. So not too good. At that point, the artificial intelligence was even worse, so it wasn't even on the chart here. So that was the state of the art in 2011. Then in 2012, something happened, a new discovery, something called deep learning and neural networks, which had been incubating for years, but it finally had a breakthrough there for a number of reasons. And this was the performance of neural networks. The error rates dropped down to 0.15%. So this is the software that was written by AI. It wasn't written by humans, and it outperformed the software that was written by humans. Interestingly, down here is the actual human error rate at reading these images. So this isn't software written by humans. This is actually humans looking at the images. And what happened about 18 months later, these are all neural network programs again, and the artificial intelligence actually surpassed the human's ability not to write software. It already did that back there, but it actually surpassed the human's ability to read these studies. This is our company, Kim and I. Here's Jan from Facebook, who's joined us as an advisor, and this is our chairman, Rob Brinken. His day job was as, or his old gig was as CEO of Deutsche Bank in the Asia region. We raised millions of dollars of venture capital. We assembled a fine team of equally talented people, and we assembled about 1 billion medical images that have labels from radiologists with them, and we're able to apply them to begin looking at images. Medical images look like this. At first glance, they seem like they're very easy to interpret, or they're very easy to analyze with computers because they have a uniform scale and occlusion, unlike real-world images like this, where you get a lot of nuisance variability in position and things like that. But actually, medical images, radiology images are much more challenging than real-world images because instead of a single image on the ImageNet challenge, you can have thousands in radiology, in only 1,000 classes of abnormalities on the ImageNet, but on radiologies, there's many more classes per case. You need to think about clinical history, prior studies, and you ultimately want a full report as the output for radiology. So our first product was CT of the head examination. You're familiar with CT of the head. It's like slicing a loaf of bread, CT scans and all. So to do this, to develop this, we took about 54,000 CT head studies that were all read by radiologists, and then we had our software read it. And it's a total almost 9 million images, and the system was trained on that. The AI experienced these 9 million images, and then it began to write its own software for the interpretation. Just to give you an idea, US radiologists are required by law to see 7,000 exams per year over 4 years of their training in their residency program to be certified as radiologists. So that comes out to be 28,000 exams, and by comparison, we looked at 54,000 exams just to train on CT head. So it's a huge amount of studies to train these neural networks. Here, I'm almost out of time, and maybe I'll close with this one, and we can talk more at the booth and explain more. This is our first CT head product we announced in November. Okay, November 2017. We released a paper showing the abnormality here is picked up by the scan. The radiologist would see it as well. It takes a radiologist 300 seconds on average to interpret this and the other images in the study. Our system will do it in under 1 second. The error rate with the radiologist, thankfully, is very low, but ours is actually lower. And then finally, the cost for a radiologist in the United States on average is about $50 to do this interpretation. Because this is software on our system, it's about 2 cents. So maybe I'll end here, and the next revolution, of course, that we're embracing here is blockchain smart contracts, and we can address how that works out at the booth, and maybe take some questions. Or do we have time for questions at the end? Or?
No, if you just want to do it at the booth, that would be.
All right. Thank you very much for everyone's attention, and please come and visit us at the booth.
All right, thank you all for making it for this very informative presentation by the doctors here. As they said, there's a lovely little booth out there if you have any questions. Sorry that we ran out of time today, weren't able to fit the questions into this session. We'll be meeting back here in about